So between the carbon bladed spoke and the Alpina Aero light spoke, which one do you think would be faster?
Hoping to find out or hoping to establish that the carbon spoke was faster, and it still wasn't.
We've been working to develop the fastest bladed spoke on the planet. Welcome to our new series that we've called Prologue. So this series is about getting the maximum amount of watts out of products. So we're a performance brand. And today we're going to talk about carbon bladed spokes versus aero steel spokes to find out which one's faster. In this episode, we'll give you some more sneaky behind the scenes information to our new Ultra range that we will be releasing soon. One of the biggest conversations on the market today is comparing carbon bladed spoke with a steel spoke. So we took both to the wind tunnel, and we're here today with our engineer, Lindsay Watson. And we're going to chat about the advantages and disadvantages of carbon bladed spokes versus steel spokes. And we come up with some very interesting results, which I'm sure you guys will all be keen to hear. On top of that, we've actually developed a brand new Ultra range that we're releasing shortly in the next few weeks. And it has brand new technology whenever it comes to carbon spoke design. First question for Lindsay, who does all of our design and development work. Lindsay, what is wrong with steel spokes? Why do people want carbon spokes? What's the issue with steel spokes?
I suppose it's not that there's an issue with steel spokes. You know, we both know that in the industry today, the steel spokes, they're very, very hard to fault, and aerodynamically, they're very, very good. But what we are seeing is an industry trend to the consumer wanting carbon, primarily probably because we both know they look incredible. You know, there's no denying that a carbon spoked wheel, just it looks great. It looks great standing still. But what a lot of people don't realize is that they are aerodynamically inferior to a steel spoke.
Historically, that has been the case.
Historically, that's been the case, and truthfully, it pains us, you know, because I love a carbon spoke wheel. I love the ride feel. I love the quality. I love the weight reduction that a carbon spoke offers. But on paper, they're just not as fast.
Okay, so that is interesting. So that's kind of been sort of like industry accepted norms and general conversations. Although some brands are pushing carbon fiber spokes as being like the new ultra fast spokes. So it's something that's been debatable. Later on, like we can show results and what we found versus carbon bladed versus the steel spokes.
Yeah. I suppose there's a lot of I suppose marketing hype. You know, obviously wheel brands want to sell the next best thing, and you know, carbon spokes is one of those. You know, so what those brands aren't doing is direct comparisons. And I suppose us as Scribe, as a primarily performance oriented brand, we focus on performance, and the product needs to be backed up by the data.
What are the advantages of carbon spokes then? So,
well, there is the weight reduction. So a carbon spoke typically
so less to carry up a hill.
Less to carry up the hill, less rotational mass. So the carbon spoke typically is probably half the weight of an equivalent steel spoke. What that means in terms of a wheel set is probably a weight reduction of, I don't know, 80 to 100 grams. We both know that a carbon spoke can be up to 2 to 3 times stronger than an equivalent steel spoke, allowing us to build and assemble a wheel that is with less spokes again.
Yeah.
Less weight.
One of the tests we have done before in the past was tensile strength for carbon spokes and steel spokes. Yeah. So tensile strength is whenever you pull the spoke apart, the force to actually snap it. So we do have videos online for that. So a steel spoke, just to give people an idea, is 300 kgf for one spoke to snap it. A carbon spoke's about 450 kgf, so they are significantly stronger for much less weight. So you can see how there are performance benefits that you can build into carbon spokes. It is interesting.
Yeah, I suppose one thing to touch on is the properties of the UD carbon itself. You know, naturally a steel spoke, when put under tension, it does stretch. Where a carbon spoke, given the form of the UD fiber, there isn't the same amount of give, and that's sort of translated then into the ride feel.
So interesting what you're saying there about ride feel. So next question here was something that doesn't get talked about, I think, enough is actually how do they ride. So you're obviously our engineer, you're also our top test rider, so you get all the secret stuff before anybody else. You've been riding both our aero spokes and our carbon spokes. Can you give us a bit of an insight into how you think they feel? So carbon bladed spokes, for example.
Yeah, well, I suppose over the years, I've always preferred a wheel set that maybe carries a high tension, so I would have maybe had more tension in a steel spoke wheel because I kind of like that race feel, that twitchiness that makes you feel faster. But obviously with that comes that sort of slight bit of harshness. You do feel every wee bit of the road. What I found the first time when I jumped onto a carbon spoke on a wheel set that had more tension than the steel spoke, you didn't get that same buzz but you still got the feedback that you wanted. That was instant. That's something that I felt right away, that flip. I still get that racy feel. The precise element to the steering, you do feel that stiffness.
Yeah, okay.
The instant,
Mm.
the way the wheel is just, it responds. All
Yeah.
power
So
is
whenever you're
translated.
saying stiffness, so obviously it's torsional stiffness. So that's one thing, we know, which is whenever
Yeah.
you put the power down on the pedals, it's the torsional responsive of the back wheel. There's very little loss. You feel very little loss in that compared with.
From my experience, I've been quite sensitive to changes. I've done a lot in the past in terms of changing spoke tensions and things, but in reality, what I have found is most riders couldn't tell the difference in a blind test. And I suppose that's all down to people, increasing the volume of tires. Tires can dumb down a lot of those sensations. But again, there's riders out there who will potentially feel the difference. And that's why we are continuing our development to create a carbon spoke that works.
Okay,
all aspects.
interesting. So as most of our viewers know, that we go to the wind tunnel quite a lot. So we go up
Yeah.
to several times a year now.
Spend how much money?
We spend a lot of money in the wind tunnel, which is, yeah, it's a lot of money. But we're a progressive brand. Everything we do is performance oriented, but we have to back everything up with results, okay?
Yeah.
So this is the big question. So between the carbon bladed spoke and the Alpina Aero spoke, which one do you think would be faster?
I suppose it's a question of which did I know was going to be faster and which did I want to be faster. So we're talking about the aerodynamic reality. And before going to the tunnel to do those direct comparisons, we did spend a bit of time testing a 2mm spoke, a 3mm spoke, different airfoil sections, before establishing that 5mm bladed carbon spoke. Not only looked the best, but it was the fastest out of all the carbon spokes that we tested. So following that, we then took that wheel set along with our Alpina Aero spoke to do some more direct comparisons at various speeds, covering the full yaw range from 0 to 20 or -20 to +20, hoping to find out hoping to establish that the carbon spoke was faster, and it still wasn't.
So I think if you talk us through the graph, so just to show viewers kind of the wind tunnel results. So in the graph we have two lines. So one is the Alpina ultralight Aero steel spoke, and the next one is the 5mm carbon bladed spoke. So one's faster than the other. The faster spoke will be the one lower on the graph because it takes less power to push forwards, and then the slower one is the higher one. So obviously the faster one was the Alpina steel spoke.
Yeah.
The slower one was the bladed carbon spoke, and a significant gap between them.
Okay, well, you say significant. On paper, things can be, they can look like there is a difference, and that's what we're doing. We are looking at the fine detail here. In reality, the differences we are seeing here might not be seen on the road. You and me, we've been out in the road, we've been out with the Aero sensor, and sometimes based on the conditions, we don't see the differences that we want to see, or the differences don't correlate to what we see in the tunnel. And that's why through our development, we use these various testing methods, the wind tunnel and the road. But a lot of the data that we present is factual, comes from the tunnel, and on the tunnel, it's clear to see that Alpina spoke is faster. On the road, we just see it, maybe not at higher speeds.
Do you think you wouldn't feel it?
You wouldn't feel it.
It's
No,
small.
sorry, yes.
So the answer is the 5mm bladed spoke is slower than a steel Aero spoke. But there are, as we said earlier on, there are benefits of having a carbon spoke. So they are lighter, they're stiffer, more responsive, etc. Which is on to our next sort of secret project, which is we've been working to develop the fastest bladed spoke on the planet, and we tested it against the 5mm bladed spoke. And we also have a graph. So top line this time is the 5mm bladed spoke. Our new faster one is the new design that will be on our new Ultra range, which is releasing soon. So can you tell us a bit more about sort of the process of that, how we got to it?
I suppose you did mention it was a secret, but we both know it's no secret because we just love telling everybody about it. And it is exciting because it's something that we've worked towards for a long time. And, we've been working with Alpina to find something that does work. And to get here, there was hours and hours of testing.
Many tests. I mean, it's been
various prototypes.
It's got to be 9 months. We've been testing this.
Yeah, plastic prototypes, plastic spokes, plastic rims, all sorts of configurations, just to try and extract data to find a solution. And like you said, I think we've closer than we've ever been, and we actually think we have something here that is not only looks incredible, but carries the same aerodynamic performance as our Aero steel spoke.
Do you want to give us a quick tease as to what it is?
Yeah, well, this is what we have. And how many prototypes have we? We maybe had like 10 to 15 different prototypes. We've now landed on a configuration that we think is, I think we know is the fastest carbon spoke available. So in summary, I suppose we both know that cycling is a sport that consists of an accumulation of marginal gains, aesthetics, and emotion. And with our new carbon spoke, I think we're ticking all those boxes. So not only have we got something that looks insanely fast and looks incredible, it is fast.
Thank you for watching the first episode of Prologue, and thank you, obviously, Lindsay, for coming here today. If you have any questions about anything we've talked about today, or you'd like more information, please let us know in the comments below. We will put the blog in there also, so you can just read through that at your own leisure.